The morning alarm echoed through the metal halls of Arcturus 7 station. Cadet Jiho rolled out of his sleeping pod and stretched his arms above his head. 3 months had passed since he arrived at the Galactic Military Academy. 3 months of training with aliens from worlds he had only read about in books back on Earth. He pulled on his gray cadet uniform and walked to the cafeteria. The station recycled air always smelled slightly metallic, nothing like the fresh air back home in Seoul. Jiho missed the smell of rain and the street food vendors near his old apartment, but he was here now, representing humanity among the stars. The cafeteria buzzed with different languages and sounds. Jiho grabbed a tray of protein paste that was supposed to be safe for human digestion. It tasted like cardboard, but it kept him alive. He sat at his usual table near the viewing window where he could see the stars. "Human Jiho!" a rough voice called out. Thornick approached the table, his 4 arms carrying multiple trays of food. The Vrex was 7 feet tall, with green scales and yellow eyes that blinked sideways. "You ready for today's announcement?" Jiho shrugged. "What announcement? You not here?" Pellin buzzed down from above, landing on the table with a soft click. The insect-like Chitara folded his wing cases against his back. "Instructors calling special assembly. Big news, they say." Voss floated over, his crystalline body chiming softly with each movement. The lumens didn't eat like others, instead absorbing light for energy. "I calculate 73% probability it involves new training exercise." Jiho nodded and continued eating his tasteless breakfast. His 3 cohort mates had been kind to him mostly. They found humans strange and soft. Earth was classified as a garden world, a planet with comfortable temperatures and gentle weather. Most other species came from harsher places with dangerous predators and extreme conditions. The assembly hall filled quickly. Hundreds of cadets from dozens of species packed the tiered seating. Jiho sat with his cohort in their assigned section. The lights dimmed and Instructor Qualvex walked onto the central platform. Qualvex was old for a Vrex, his scales darker and marked with scars from past battles. He commanded respect and fear in equal measure. His eyes swept across the assembled cadets before he spoke. "Cadets!" His voice amplified through the hall's speakers. "You have trained for 3 months. You have learned weapons, tactics, and discipline. But training is not enough. A warrior must prove themselves against real danger." Excited whispers rippled through the crowd. Jiho felt his heart beat faster. "The proving grounds," Calvex continued, "is an ancient tradition. Each cohort must face the Krell beast. This creature comes from Krell 9, a death world where only the strongest survive. The beast stands 12 feet tall. Its scales can stop standard energy weapons. Its claws can tear through battle armor." Several cadets shifted nervously in their seats. Thornick's scales rippled with anxiety. Pellin's antennae twitched rapidly. "You will enter the arena in your cohort groups," Qualvex explained. "You will be given basic protection and traditional energy pikes. Your task is simple. Survive the beast's charge and work together to drive it back to its containment unit. This trial has tested warriors for 600 years. Jiho listened carefully. Something felt wrong about this. Why use such a dangerous creature for training? What if someone got seriously hurt? "The trials begin tomorrow," Qualvex announced. "Each cohort will be called in order." His eyes found Jiho in the crowd and held his gaze for a long moment. "We shall see what each species is truly made of." The assembly ended and cadets filed out, talking nervously about the coming trial. Thornick practiced defensive stances in the hallway. Pellin flew in quick circles, testing his reflexes. Voss hummed at different frequencies, checking his resonance shields. Jiho walked quietly behind them. He thought about the Krell beast, a creature from a death world, forced to perform in trials for cadets. How did it feel about that? Was it treated well between trials? Back in the dormitory, Jiho accessed the station's database. He searched for information about Krell 9 and its creatures. The planet orbited a red dwarf star, creating permanent twilight conditions. The temperature stayed cool and the atmosphere was thick with moisture. Creatures there had evolved to hunt in low light using other senses. He read about the Krell beast's biology. It had excellent hearing and smell. Its eyes were sensitive to bright light. The species was actually quite intelligent, capable of learning and even showing affection to regular caretakers in captivity. "You studying?" Thornik asked, entering the dormitory. His 4 arms carried training equipment. "Just reading about the beast," Jiho replied. Thornik laughed, a rattling sound from deep in his chest. "Why waste time? Tomorrow we fight, we survive, we pass trial. Simple. Don't you want to understand what we're facing?" "I understand enough. Big, dangerous, we stay alive." Thornik began cleaning his energy pike. "You humans think too much. Sometimes warrior must just act." Jiho didn't argue. He returned to his reading, noting details about the beast's behavior patterns and stress responses. The more he learned, the more questions formed in his mind. That night, Jiho couldn't sleep. He lay in his pod thinking about tomorrow. The other species saw this as a test of courage and strength, but Jiho kept thinking about the beast itself. A creature taken from its home world and forced to attack strangers in an arena. It didn't seem right. He remembered his grandmother's old dog back on Earth, a big animal that everyone feared because of its size and loud bark. But grandmother knew the truth. The dog barked because it was scared of strangers, not because it was mean. Once you understood that, once you approached it calmly and let it know you weren't a threat, the dog became gentle. Could a Krell beast be the same? Could it be scared rather than naturally aggressive? Jiho pushed the thought away. Tomorrow he would find out. He closed his eyes and tried to rest, knowing that the trial would test more than just his courage. It would test everything he believed about strength and survival. The station's artificial night cycle continued around him. Somewhere in the lower levels in a special containment area, the Krell beast waited in its cage. Neither the human cadet nor the alien creature knew yet how much their lives were about to change. Tomorrow would bring answers that no one expected, lessons that the Galactic Military Academy had never intended to teach. Jiho finally drifted to sleep, his dreams filled with stars and shadows, with beasts and questions that had no easy answers. The Proving Grounds arena was enormous. Jiho stood in the center with his cohort mates, looking up at the domed ceiling 50 feet above. The walls were reinforced steel meant to contain the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Bright lights blazed down from all angles, making everything harsh and shadowless. Instructor Kalvex stood in the observation deck behind protective glass. His voice came through speakers positioned around the arena. "Cadets, take your positions. You have been given standard protective vests and energy pikes. Use them wisely." Jiho adjusted his vest. It felt thin and light, barely enough to stop a strong punch. The energy pike in his hands hummed softly, charged and ready. Thornik stood to his right, gripping his pike with 2 hands while his other 2 arms stayed ready to grab or strike. Pelin hovered above, his wing cases buzzing nervously. Voss positioned himself at the rear, his crystalline body already vibrating at defensive frequencies. "Remember the plan," Thornik whispered. "We form defensive line. Beast charges, we hold position, drive it back together." Jiho nodded, but his attention was elsewhere. He noticed the air felt wrong, too humid, too warm. The lights were incredibly bright, almost painful, even for his human eyes. If the Krell beast came from a twilight world, these conditions would be torture for it. He sniffed the air carefully. There was a smell, faint but distinct. Fear pheromones, not from his cohort mates, but older, lingering in the ventilation system. The beast had been in this arena recently, and it had been afraid. "Why would they make it so uncomfortable in here?" Jiho asked. "What you mean?" Pelin buzzed from above. "The lights, the temperature. Krell 9 is a cool, dark world. This environment would stress the creature. Thornik snorted. Good. Stressed beast fights harder, makes trial more real. Before Jiho could respond, warning klaxons blared. Red lights flashed around the containment door on the far side of the arena. The speakers crackled with Kalvex's voice. "Release the beast!" The massive door began to rise with a grinding of metal gears. Darkness waited beyond. Then came the sound, a roar so deep and loud that Jiho felt it in his chest. The other cadets raised their weapons and tightened their formation. The Krell beast emerged from the darkness into the bright arena lights. It was massive, even larger than Jiho had imagined. 12 feet of pure muscle covered in midnight black scales that reflected the harsh lights. Its head was broad and flat with ridges of bone running from its snout to the back of its skull. Bioluminescent eyes blazed with an eerie blue light, pupils contracted to tiny slits against the brightness. The creature's mouth opened, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Its roar shook the arena again. Claws as long as Jiho's forearm scraped against the metal floor, leaving deep gouges. "Hold position!" Thornik shouted. But the beast wasn't following any predictable pattern. It didn't circle or assess them like a smart predator should. Instead, it charged immediately, moving with desperate speed rather than calculated hunting strategy. The charge was pure chaos. Thornik and Voss braced for impact, but the beast was too fast and too heavy. Its tail swept sideways, catching both of them and sending them tumbling across the arena floor. Pellin tried to dive from above with his pike, but the beast's head snapped up, jaws closing inches from the insectoid's body. Pellin buzzed away in panic. Jiho stumbled backward, separated from his cohort. The beast's charge carried it past the others, directly toward him. He found himself backed into a corner where two walls met. The creature turned, fixing its bioluminescent eyes on him. In the observation deck, Jiho could hear excited voices. Kalvex was saying something about the human's test and learning humility. Other instructors were making wagers on how quickly Jiho would use the emergency beacon to surrender. But Jiho wasn't paying attention to them. He was watching the beast. The creature approached slowly now, head low, muscles tense. Its breathing was rapid and shallow. The bioluminescent eyes weren't showing the focused intensity of a predator about to strike. They were wide, darting, scanning everything at once. The beast's scales rippled in waves along its body, a sign of distress in many reptilian species. Jiho noticed more details. The scales were dull in patches, some even cracked and peeling. There were scars along the creature's flanks, old wounds poorly healed. The beast's movements were aggressive, yes, but also erratic. It would start to move one direction, then jerk another way, like it couldn't decide what to do. This wasn't a confident apex predator. This was a scared, confused animal that had been pushed too far. "Jiho, use pike!" Thornik shouted from across the arena. "Drive it back!" Instead, Jiho did something that made everyone watching go silent. He lowered his weapon. The energy pike powered down as he released the activation switch and gently set it on the ground. Then he slowly sat down, making himself smaller, less threatening. The Krell beast stopped advancing, its head tilted to the side in confusion. Prey didn't act like this. Prey ran or fought. Prey didn't sit down calmly. "What is human doing?" Pellin's voice carried across the arena. "Being stupid," Thornik replied, starting to move forward to help. But Jiho raised one hand in a stop gesture, not looking away from the beast. He began to speak, not in Galactic Common, but in Korean, the language of his childhood, the soft sounds his mother used when comforting him after nightmares. "Gwenchana," he said softly. "Gwenchana, it's okay." The beast took another step closer, nostrils flaring as it scented him. Jiho continued speaking in a low, calm voice. He mixed Korean words with soft clicking sounds, the kind humans used with nervous animals on Earth. He kept his body relaxed, his movements slow and predictable. Museobji Anha, don't be scared. I won't hurt you. The creature's breathing began to slow. Its scales stopped rippling quite so violently. The bioluminescent eyes focused on Jiho, really seeing him for the first time rather than just reacting to movement and threat. Jiho extended his hand, palm up, fingers relaxed, not reaching for the beast, just offering, showing he had no weapons, no intention to harm. His voice continued its soft rhythm, not commanding, not threatening, just present, calm. The Krell beast took another step forward, then another. Its massive head lowered until the snout was level with Jiho's outstretched hand. In the observation deck, someone dropped their data pad. The clatter echoed through the speakers. The beast's nostrils flared again, taking in Jiho's scent. The humans smelled different from the others. No fear stink, no aggression hormones, just calm steadiness and something else. Something the beast's instincts recognized even if it didn't understand it. Gentleness, care. The same energy that caretakers used when they weren't hurting it, when they brought food and water, before the bright lights and the loud noises and the forced trials began. The creature's head moved forward the last few inches. Its scaled snout touched Jiho's palm. The Krell beast's scales felt rough against Jiho's palm, but warm, almost hot to the touch. The creature stood absolutely still for a long moment, as if trying to understand this strange contact. Then slowly, it pressed its head more firmly against the human's hand. Jiho felt the tension in the massive creature begin to ease. He kept his voice soft and steady, continuing to speak in Korean. "Chakai, good! You're doing so well." The beast's eyes, those glowing blue orbs, began to dim slightly. Jiho realized this was actually a good sign. On Krell 9, the bioluminescence was probably used for hunting in darkness. The bright glow meant stress and alertness. As the creature calmed, the light softened. He slowly moved his other hand up, telegraphing every movement so the beast could see it coming. His fingers found the ridge behind the creature's skull, where bone met scale. He pressed gently, then scratched with his fingernails. The effect was immediate. The Krell beast made a sound that no one in the arena had ever heard before. It was deep and rumbling, coming from somewhere in its chest. The vibration traveled through the creature's body and into the floor. It sounded almost like purring? Impossible. Kalvex's voice came through the speakers, confused and angry. Krell beasts don't make that sound. But this one did. It pressed harder against Jiho's hand, tilting its head to give him better access to the itchy spot. The aggressive posture melted away completely. The creature's tail, which moments ago had been rigid and weapon-like, now relaxed and curled slightly. Jiho continued scratching, finding more spots that made the beast lean into his touch. He spoke to it constantly, nonsense words in Korean mixed with the gentle tone that mattered more than the actual language. Neon cham yepeoda, you're beautiful, aren't you? Yes, you are. Just scared and uncomfortable. Across the arena, Thornick, Pellin, and Voss watched in complete shock. Thornick's 4 arms hung uselessly at his sides, his pike forgotten on the ground. Pellin had landed and folded his wings, antennae drooping in confusion. Voss's crystalline body had stopped resonating entirely. "Should we help?" Pellin asked quietly. "Help with what?" Voss replied. "Beast not attacking, human not in danger. I calculate 0 threat in current situation." In the observation deck, chaos erupted. Instructors argued with each other in multiple languages. Some demanded the trial be stopped immediately. Others insisted on waiting to see what happened next. Kalvex stood frozen, his scaled face showing an expression none of the cadets had seen before. Uncertainty. Jiho felt the beast shift its weight. For a moment he tensed, wondering if the calm would break. But instead, the creature did something even more surprising. It lowered its entire body to the ground, lying down like an enormous dog. Then it scooted closer to Jiho, moving its massive head into the human's lap. The weight was incredible. Jiho estimated the beast's head alone weighed more than he did, but he didn't push it away. Instead, he adjusted his position to support it better and continued his gentle scratching and soft words. "There you go. Comfortable now? This is better than all those bright lights and loud noises, isn't it?" The beast's rumbling purr grew louder. One of its front legs, thick as a tree trunk with those razor claws, moved slightly. The claws that could tear through armor now carefully, almost delicately, touched Jiho's leg. Not threatening, just contact. Connection. Jiho looked up at the observation deck. He could see the instructors through the glass arguing and gesturing. He raised his voice to be picked up by the arena microphones. "It's not aggressive. Can't you see? The beast is terrified!" His words carried through the speakers, echoing in the sudden silence that fell over the observation deck. Jiho continued, anger creeping into his calm voice for the first time. "Look at its scales. They're damaged from improper lighting. Krell 9 is a twilight world, but you're blasting it with lights bright enough for a desert planet. And the humidity is wrong. Too dry. It's hurting the beast's breathing." He pointed at the creature's flanks, where scales were cracked. "See these wounds? This isn't from fighting. This is from stress and poor care. You didn't bring out a proper test. You brought out a tortured animal and expected it to perform for you." Thornick approached cautiously, his pike still lowered. "Jiho, speak truth? Beast is sick? Not sick? Stressed? Scared?" Pushed past its limits. Jiho's hand never stopped its gentle movement across the beast's scales. On Earth, we learned something important about animals. Even predators have feelings. Even dangerous creatures can be hurt and frightened. The beast shifted again, pressing closer to Jiho like it was trying to hide from the bright lights and loud voices. The mighty predator from a death world was seeking comfort from the smallest being in the arena. Pelin flew closer, hovering at a safe distance. But Krell beasts used in trials for hundreds of years, always aggressive, always dangerous. "Because you keep them stressed," Jiho replied. "Look at it now. When it's not being hurt or scared, it's gentle. My grandmother had a dog that everyone feared. Big, loud, seemed mean. But she knew the dog was just scared of strangers. Once you understood that, once you showed the dog kindness, it became the sweetest animal." Voss floated over, his crystalline body chiming thoughtfully. "Humans suggesting beasts' behavior is response to treatment, not natural state." "Exactly." Jiho looked down at the massive creature in his lap. Its breathing had become slow and regular, the bioluminescent eyes now barely glowing. This beast doesn't want to fight. It wants to feel safe. In the observation deck, one of the doors slid open. A human woman strode in, her face tight with anger. Instructor Hana was a xenobiologist on the academy staff, one of the few humans in teaching positions. She had been monitoring the trial from her lab and had just seen Jiho's examination of the beast. "Calvex," her voice cut through the arguing instructors like a blade. "What have you done?" The old Vrex turned to face her. "Standard trial procedure, same as always." "Same as always?" Hana pulled up a data screen visible to everyone in the observation deck. "I just accessed the beast's care logs. The creature was kept in maximum brightness lighting for 3 days before this trial. Fed only half rations. Exposed to high-frequency sounds that its species finds painful. You deliberately tortured it to make it aggressive." Silence fell across the observation deck. Several instructors shifted uncomfortably. Hana's voice shook with rage. "And you did this for the human cadets trial specifically. I can see your notes right here." Enhanced protocol for human testing. You wanted to humiliate the human by having the beast attack him more violently. Calvex's scales rippled. The human needed to learn. Learn what? That you're cruel and prejudiced? Hana's eyes blazed. Look at what actually happened. The human cadet did what his species does best. He looked past the aggression, saw the frightened creature underneath, and responded with compassion. That's not weakness. That's strength you're too blind to recognize. She activated her override codes. This trial is over. The beast returns to containment immediately, and this time with proper care protocols. And we're going to have a very long conversation about ethics and species prejudice. The arena had grown quiet except for the deep, rumbling purr of the Krell beast. Jiho continued to stroke the creature's scales while Instructor Hana descended from the observation deck to the arena floor. She moved slowly, not wanting to startle the beast. "Cadet Jiho," Hana called out softly. "I'm going to approach. Is the creature calm?" "Yes, Instructor," Jiho replied. "But move slowly. It's still nervous." Hana walked across the arena floor until she stood a few feet away. She knelt down to be at eye level with the beast. The creature's glowing eyes tracked her movement, but it didn't stir from Jiho's lap. If anything, it pressed closer to the human, seeking his continued reassurance. "Remarkable," Hana whispered. She pulled out a medical scanner from her belt and ran it over the beast's visible scales. The device beeped softly, collecting data. Temperature regulation is stressed, hydration levels are low, multiple scale fractures from environmental damage. She looked at Jiho with respect in her eyes. "You diagnosed all of this just by observing?" Jiho nodded. "My grandmother taught me to watch animals carefully. They can't tell you with words when something is wrong, but their bodies show everything." Hana's scanner continued to beep. She stood and spoke loudly enough for the observation deck to hear. "This creature is suffering from severe environmental stress. 3 days of improper care has left it dehydrated, sleep-deprived, and in significant discomfort. Under these conditions, any creature would become aggressive. This was not a fair trial. This was animal abuse." In the observation deck, Calvex's scales had gone pale. Other instructors stepped away from him, their body language showing disapproval. The evidence was clear and damning. Hana tapped her communicator. "Medical team, prepare the beast's proper containment area, dim lighting, appropriate humidity, fresh water, and a full meal. Immediately." She looked down at Jiho and the beast. "We need to move it to better conditions. Can you help?" Jiho gently shifted the beast's head from his lap. The creature made a questioning sound, almost a whine. "Gwenchana," Jiho murmured. "We're going to make you comfortable, I promise." He stood slowly, keeping one hand on the beast's head. The creature rose with him, staying close. Jiho began walking toward the containment door, speaking constantly in that soft Korean tone. The beast followed him like an enormous puppy, its earlier aggression completely gone. Thornick, Pellin, and Voss watched in amazement as the human cadet led the supposedly deadly predator across the arena. The creature's tail swayed gently behind it, no longer a weapon but just a balancing tool. Its claws retracted partially, clicking softly on the metal floor. "Never seen anything like this," Thornick said quietly. "Human has gift," Voss agreed. "Ability we did not recognize." As Jiho led the beast through the door into the dimmer corridor beyond, the creature seemed to relax even more. Away from the harsh lights, its eyes stopped glowing so intensely. It made that rumbling purr again, pressing its shoulder against Jiho's side as they walked. The medical team had prepared a proper enclosure, soft lighting that mimicked Krell 9's twilight, cool, humid air, a large pool of clean water, fresh meat laid out on feeding platforms. The beast's eyes widened at the sight. It looked at Jiho as if asking permission. "Go ahead," Jiho said gently, gesturing toward the enclosure. "It's for you." The creature hesitated, then slowly entered. It went immediately to the water pool and drank deeply, gulping down liters of liquid. Then it lay down in the shallow water with a sound of pure relief. The damaged scales on its flanks seemed to relax as proper moisture soaked into them. Jiho watched from the enclosure entrance, smiling. The beast looked back at him while drinking, making sure the human was still there. Hana stood beside Jiho, also watching. "You've done something important today, Cadet. You've challenged some very old assumptions about what makes a good warrior." "I just saw a scared animal," Jiho replied quietly. "Exactly. And that's the point." Hana gestured back toward the arena. "Most species in the galaxy value strength and aggression. They come from harsh worlds where being tough meant survival. But humans evolved differently. Your ancestors didn't just survive by being the strongest predators. They survived by being smart enough to make other creatures into allies." The beast finished drinking and moved to the food. It ate quickly, but not frantically, like it had been hungry for days. Hana continued, "Do you know what makes humans unique in the galaxy? You can look at a wolf, one of your planet's apex predators, and see a friend. You can look at a wild horse, powerful and dangerous, and see a partner. Other species see threats to dominate or avoid. Humans see potential connections." "Is that really so special?" Jiho asked. "Yes." Hana pulled up a data screen showing galactic history. "Humans have been in space for less than 100 years. In that time, you've made peaceful contact with 40 different species. The Vrex took 300 years to achieve the same. The Chitara took 500. Humans don't make allies through strength or intimidation. You do it through empathy and understanding." The beast, having eaten its fill, returned to the water pool. It settled down in the shallow end, closing its eyes. But it faced the entrance where Jiho stood, as if keeping watch over the human even while resting. "What will happen to Instructor Kalvex?" Jiho asked. "There will be an investigation. What he did violated multiple protocols about creature welfare and cadet safety. At minimum, he'll be suspended." Hana's expression hardened. "And I will personally ensure that every other instructor understands why this was wrong." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the beast rest peacefully for probably the first time in days. "The other cadets will talk about this," Hana said. "Some will understand what you did today. Others will still think you were just lucky or foolish. But I want you to know something important." She turned to face Jiho directly. "What you did in that arena was not weakness. It was not naivety. It was one of humanity's greatest strengths, and you should never apologize for it." Jiho felt something warm in his chest. For 3 months, he had felt like he didn't quite fit in at the academy. Too soft, too gentle, too human. But maybe that wasn't a flaw. Maybe it was exactly what the galaxy needed. "Instructor," he said carefully, "what will happen to the beast after it recovers?" Hana smiled. "That's a good question. This creature has been through trauma. It can't return to the wild, and I won't allow it to be used in trials anymore." She paused thoughtfully. "There's a xenozoological facility on Sanctuary Station. They specialize in caring for creatures from different worlds. I think our friend here would do well there." Can I name it?" Jiho asked. "Of course." Jiho thought for a moment, watching the peaceful creature in the water. "Baram," he said finally. "It means wind in Korean, gentle but powerful." "Baram," Hana repeated, testing the name. "I like it." The beast, as if hearing its new name, opened one eye and looked at Jiho. Its tail swished gently in the water, creating small ripples. Then it closed its eye again and returned to peaceful rest, finally safe and comfortable after days of suffering. 1 week had passed since the incident in the arena. The Galactic Military Academy buzzed with gossip and debate. Cadets who had witnessed the trial told and retold the story. The human who calmed the Krell beast became instant legend, though Jiho himself wished people would stop staring at him in the cafeteria. The investigation moved quickly. Instructor Kalvex was suspended pending a full review. 2 other Vrex instructors who had helped plan the enhanced trial faced disciplinary action. The Academy's entire Proving Grounds protocol was frozen while administrators reviewed centuries of tradition. Jiho sat in the Academy's assembly hall along with hundreds of other cadets. Instructor Hana stood at the central platform, preparing to give a special lecture that attendance was mandatory for all combat training students. "I know many of you have questions about last week's events," Hana began, her voice calm but firm. "Some of you think Cadet Jiho was foolish. Some think he was lucky. Some think the trial was unfair from the start. You're all partially correct and all partially wrong." She activated a holographic display showing images of Earth, forests, oceans, mountains, then images of animals, wolves, horses, cats, dogs. "Let me tell you about humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage," Hana continued. "Humans did not evolve to be the biggest or strongest or fastest species on their planet. They were relatively weak compared to Earth's apex predators. So how did they become dominant?" The display changed to show ancient humans sitting around a fire with wolves nearby. "They made friends?" Hana smiled at the surprised reactions from alien cadets. "Humans looked at wolves, dangerous pack hunters, and saw potential allies. They shared food, provided shelter, and over generations turned wolves into dogs, loyal companions who would help humans hunt and guard their homes. More images appeared. Humans riding horses, farming with oxen, sailing with cats to catch rats. Humans didn't just do this with one species, they did it with dozens. They looked at wild, dangerous animals and asked, how can we work together? This ability, this instinct to form cross-species bonds became one of humanity's most powerful survival traits. Thornick raised one of his 4 arms. But this is not strength. This is making pets. Is it? Hana challenged. A human with a dog can track prey better than most hunters alone. A human on a horse can travel farther and faster than almost any land creature. A human who understands animal behavior can avoid danger that would kill a stronger warrior who only knows how to fight. She paused. Working together is strength, Cadet Thornick. Perhaps the greatest strength there is. Pellin's antennae twitched thoughtfully. But Krell Beast is not dog or horse. Is dangerous predator from Deathworld. Exactly my point, Hana replied. Cadet Jiho didn't look at the Krell Beast and see a monster. He looked at it and saw a creature in distress. He used observation, empathy, and understanding instead of weapons. And what happened? The dangerous predator became gentle? Voss chimed softly. Calculate that other species lack this ability? Not entirely, Hana said. Many species can train animals or work with other creatures, but humans do it instinctively, almost unconsciously. They form emotional bonds across species barriers more easily than any other sapient race we've encountered. It's not just training or dominance, it's genuine connection. The display changed again, showing Jiho in the arena with the beast, the massive creature's head resting peacefully in his lap. Look at this image, Hana instructed. What do you see? Human being stupid, someone muttered from the back. A few cadets laughed nervously. I see trust, Hana countered. That beast weighed 3 times what Cadet Jiho weighs. It could have killed him in seconds. But it chose not to, because Jiho showed it kindness when it expected violence. He offered comfort when it was suffering. The beast recognized that, responded to it, and formed a bond. She looked around the hall, making eye contact with cadets from a dozen different species. The galaxy is vast and filled with warriors. Every species here can produce soldiers who are strong, brave, and disciplined. But how many can produce someone who looks at a frightened creature and instinctively knows how to help it? That's rare. That's valuable. Thornick stood up, all four arms raised in the formal question gesture. Instructor Hana, you say this is human advantage, but human homeworld is soft garden planet. Our worlds have real predators, real danger. Does this not make us stronger? Does it? Hana pulled up comparative data. Human death world survival rate in simulations, 78%. Vrex survival rate on garden worlds, 42%. Humans adapt to new environments faster than almost any species. Why? Because they don't just fight their surroundings. They learn from them, work with them, find allies in unexpected places. She let that sink in before continuing. Strength isn't just about surviving harsh conditions. It's about thriving anywhere. Humans spent their evolution learning to read emotions, build relationships, and find common ground with creatures completely different from themselves. Now they're in space, doing the same thing with alien species. The hall had grown very quiet. Cadets were thinking, reconsidering old assumptions. Hana pulled up one final image. Baram, the Krell beast from the trial, has been transferred to a xenozoological facility on Sanctuary Station. Within 3 days of proper care, its scales healed, its stress levels normalized, and its natural, gentle temperament emerged. The creature that seemed like a monster was just a suffering animal that needed help. She closed the display and looked directly at the assembled cadets. I'm telling you all this because military strength comes in many forms. Yes, we need warriors who can fight, but we also need people who can prevent fights, who can turn enemies into allies, who can see beyond first impressions to the truth underneath. Every species brings different strengths to the galactic community. This is humanity's strength, and it's just as valuable as any weapon or armor. The lecture ended and cadets filed out, talking quietly among themselves. Jiho found himself surrounded by his cohort mates. Human Jiho, Thornick said formally, all four arms crossed in a gesture of respect. I think I understand now. What you did was not weakness, was different kind of courage. Not courage, Jiho replied modestly. Just seeing what was really there. Still impressive, Pellin buzzed. You teach us this? How to observe like human? Jiho smiled. I can try. But you already know how. You just have to practice looking past the obvious. Voss chimed in agreement. Calculate increased cohort effectiveness if we combine Vrex strength, Chitara speed, Lumen's defense, and human empathy. Theoretical advantage significant. Then we'll train together, Jiho said, all of our strengths combined. That evening, Jiho received a message on his personal terminal. It was a video file from Sanctuary Station. He opened it and smiled. The video showed Baram in a large, comfortable enclosure designed to mimic Krell 9's environment. The beast was healthy now. Scales gleaming, eyes bright but not stressed. A caretaker was playing with it, and Baram was gentle and playful, carefully controlling its strength. Then the caretaker did something interesting. They played an audio file. Jiho's own voice recorded from the arena speaking soft Korean words. Baram's reaction was immediate. The beast's head lifted, ears perking up. It looked around for the source of the voice, and when it realized Jiho wasn't there, it made that deep rumbling purr, the sound of happiness, of recognition, of connection that transcended species. The caretaker's message appeared as text below the video. Baram responds to your voice more than any other. You made a real difference in this creature's life. Thank you for showing us what compassion looks like. Jiho saved the video and leaned back in his chair. Outside his window, the stars of the galaxy glittered in endless patterns. Somewhere out there, humans were making contact with new species, building bridges, forming unlikely friendships. The galaxy was vast and filled with warriors, just as Hana had said. But maybe, just maybe, it needed something else too. It needed people who could lower their weapons and extend their hands. People who could look at the frightened creature behind the monster and offer comfort instead of combat. Jiho closed his eyes and thought about tomorrow's training. Thornick wanted to learn observation techniques. Pellin wanted to understand emotional reading. Voss wanted to study human interaction patterns. They were learning from each other now, combining their strengths. That was humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not just the ability to bond with other species, but the example that different didn't mean enemy. That strength came in many forms, that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was choose understanding over fear. The stars continued to shine, indifferent and eternal. But inside the station, in the hearts of cadets from a dozen different worlds, something was changing. Old assumptions were crumbling. New possibilities were opening. And in a facility far away, a beast from a death world slept peacefully, no longer afraid, finally understanding that not all strangers meant harm. Some, like the gentle human who spoke in soft, strange sounds, meant only kindness. The galaxy was learning slowly what humanity had known for thousands of years, that the strongest bonds aren't forged through force, but through the simple courage of reaching out to touch what others only feared.